Penguin Random House Audio presents Resurface, a guide to navigating life's biggest transitions. This is the author, Cassidy Krug. To Nicholas and Ocean, my favorite turning points. Introduction: how we got here and what to do with this book. On August 5th, 2012, I was in a place few people have ever been or will ever be. Standing on a diving board in an Olympic final, billions of eyes on me as I prepared to see if I was the best diver in the world. On August 6th, 2012, my diving career was over. My parents are both diving coaches, and I grew up on the pool deck. Aside from one 9-month break, I had never spent more than a few weeks away from the pool in a row. Now diving, which had been the center of my life for 27 years, was no longer my home. The change was as sudden as turning off the lights. No more practicing through gusting wind or sideways rain. No more protein bar meals. No more steadfast coach. No more waking up in the morning knowing exactly what my goals were for the day, week, month, and quadrennium. No more training to be the best in the world at something. The Speedo tan lines that seemed indelibly tattooed on my hips faded. My chlorine-bleached hair grew in black-brown. I was no longer an athlete. Immediately after returning from the 2012 London Olympics, I quit my job, my boyfriend, and my apartment. I changed cities 4 times. I tried and failed to be a writer, worked on a 1-season celeb reality TV show, developed an obsession with the flying trapeze, started a new career at the bottom of the advertising ladder, and spent the next 7 years working my way up the rungs. All the while, I fully expected that a new passion would fall out of a tree and hit me on the head. Another all-in-one pursuit that would deepen my friendships, fulfill my ambitions, and headline my identity. It did not. Instead, whenever I was doubtful or uncertain, my mind would drift back to diving. That moment of stasis between rising and falling, my body suspended in the air, full of potential, waiting for orders. The water stinging my hands as I ripped a jagged, bubbling hole for my body to enter. The dull, vast, post-dive oasis. Alone underwater with my triumph or despair. My body always knew before my brain did. I feel these memories with all my senses and wonder. Did I choose the right path? What could I have done differently? Have I peaked? It's been years. Why haven't I moved on yet? 7 years into my advertising and brand strategy career, these questions overcame me. I left my job and went searching for answers, first from other Olympians, then from people of all walks of life who had experienced major transitions. I spoke with people who've been in and out of prison and the military, people who have quit marriages, religions, careers, sports, and alcohol, people putting the pieces back together after deaths and diagnoses, people who have thrived through transitions, and people who have struggled, and mostly, people who have done both. I wanted to learn, is anyone else grieving the road not traveled? Is anyone else struggling to adapt to a new world? Is anyone else trying to figure out when to make their next leap and where to go? Who out there has navigated life transitions with grace, and what can I learn from them? While I worked to include stories that represented a range of experiences, I didn't search exhaustively for the subjects in this book. A few are close friends. A bunch are second-degree connections who came my way when word got out that I was writing a book on transitions. The only person in this book that I cold messaged was Stanley, the formerly incarcerated PhD candidate in Chapter 3, because I read about him and couldn't stop thinking about his story. 3 takeaways from that. 1, don't be surprised to find more 30-somethings, more trapeze hobbyists, and more Olympians than you might in a perfectly representative sample. 2, don't expect journalistic impartiality. I've become such a nerd fan of the people I've included in this book, whether we were already close or they came to me as a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. My goal was to convey, with as much perspective and empathy as possible, each subject's take on their own experience. Most of the work of transitions happens between our own ears, and my priority was to understand and share these thought processes. 3, I didn't have to cast my net far to find great stories, which leads me to believe that great stories are literally everywhere. This book was a marvelous excuse to reach out to people, grill them for an hour or two on their most interesting experiences, and ask them the meaning of life. I hope that, after listening to this book, you are inspired to reach out to your own friends, grill them about their most interesting experience, and ask them the meaning of life. I expect that you will find that the people around you are even cooler than you thought they were. A final caveat. Some scenes and conversations, particularly ones that happen outside the realm of book research, have been recreated as best as possible. Some exchanges have been tightened or edited for clarity. Some unnamed characters in my own story are a mashup of several people. Blame the process of turning memories into memoir and interviews into narrative. Now, what have I learned? If our lives are constellations, transitions are the stars. The moments that send us off in different directions, altering the shape of our existence. The liminal spaces of transitions are scary and often out of our control. But that's where we stage our personal revolutions. Unfortunately, the prevailing advice on life transitions is not particularly helpful. Time heals all wounds, they say. Right, but how do you avoid just sitting around feeling sad? You're experiencing growing pains, they say. Okay, but how do I make them stop? This is an opportunity to find your passion, they say. Thanks, but that's quite a lot of pressure. Maybe the prevailing advice misses the mark because the prevailing view of what a transition actually is not very accurate. I used to think of transitions as events with a beginning, a middle, and an end. But my conversations have shown me that most never really end. I used to think of transitions as Times Square milestones, but often they're so subtle that we don't even know they're happening until after they've happened. I used to expect transitions to result in a new permanent state, a happily or sadly or purposefully ever after. But really, life is just a set of shifts. I'm no psychologist. That ship sailed freshman year when Psych 1 overlapped with diving practice. Just someone who's curious about people, fascinated by pivots, and working to handle transitions better in my own life. This book is an ode to the beauty and uniqueness of each individual, and also the unexpected and telling ways that our dreams, fears, and instincts intersect. I've based each chapter around one of those intersection points, places where my transition and many others all seem to pass through the same stage or type of challenge. Each time I heard similar words come from the mouths of people with vastly different experiences, my ears perked up. Like, for example, when Shelby, an ex-Mormon relationship therapist, and Obasi, a Buddhist monk, both told me how thrilled they were to discover a different philosophy than the one they were raised with, but how difficult it was to unlearn the thought patterns ingrained by their former lives. I'm not saying Shelby and Obasi shared the same experience, just that their individual experiences shared a challenge, and that challenge merited further exploration. At each intersection point, I've sought answers and advice from therapists, life coaches, business leaders, and academics, along with wisdom from transitioners themselves. Ultimately, this amounts to a blueprint for a better transition. How to make the tough parts suck a little less and the good parts bring a little more joy. Each chapter ends with a set of suggestions, including at least one tell your story prompt. In the process of researching this book, I asked a lot of people to share a lot of stories. Afterward, they said things like, "What a great opportunity for reflection," and "I've never thought about my life like that before." Telling your story in writing has similar value. Writing the murky swirl of thoughts in your head gives them some order. It helps you figure out what's what and see your own life from a variety of angles. If you want to get the most out of this book, pick up your journal, or, if you're like me and your hand cramps after a page, open your laptop, and give these exercises a spin. It's worth noting that many of these exercises come from trained therapists who have devoted their lives to helping people navigate.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?